On today's episode of Foods That I Really Enjoy, but have become overpriced and no longer buy, we are once again going to be looking at my favorite snack, beef jerky. In the previous episode, we made our own and found it to be roughly half the cost and twice as delicious as store-bought alternatives. However, it also seemed to disappear twice as fast in my house, so the ratio of total money spent on jerky to time of having jerky available didn't actually change, unfortunately. That's why in today's episode, we're going to be looking for an even cheaper alternative without having to sacrifice flavor or quality. The cost of beef doesn't really go under about $5 per pound where I live, even on sale. So when I saw this pork loin for $2 a pound, it was definitely time to make some jerky. And since I'd never made pork jerky before, I figured I would experiment with it to find the optimal way to prepare it. In the end, I surprisingly found pork jerky to be superior to its beef counterpart, but I will get into the results at the end of the video. Here's how I prepared it. I trimmed some of the fat off, but I also left some on to see how they would compare in the final product. I sliced some against the grain, and I sliced some with the grain to see the difference in texture as well. I repeated the process with the other half of the loin. This side had some additional fat and marbling. I then put the sliced meat into freezer bags while I prepared the marinade. And for the marinade, I used my standard beef jerky marinade, which contains soy sauce, liquid smoke, sugar, Worcestershire sauce, garlic powder, paprika, and black pepper. Here are the exact measurements. I also prepared a spicy version, to which I added some smoked ghost pepper powder, what is apparently the spiciest chili powder in Japan, some Sichuan peppercorns, and crushed chili flakes. I also added some dark soy sauce because I felt the initial batch looked a little bit pale. The dark soy sauce adds a little bit of saltiness and sweetness, but it's mostly just being used for the color.
The next day.
And after 6 hours, most of the jerky was done. I was 99.99% certain the jerky was fine to eat, but since this was my first time making pork jerky, I turned the oven up to 225 for 20 minutes to make sure the pork reached an internal temperature of 160 degrees Fahrenheit. But how did this pork jerky compare to the beef jerky we previously made? With regard to texture, if treated with the exact same conditions, pork has a natural softer texture than beef. However, when we make the recipe, we're able to manipulate factors such as thickness, direction of the slices, oven temperature, and time, which should result in an optimal texture regardless of which meat you choose to use. For myself, the optimal texture is prepared by slicing the meat about a 1/4 inch thick with the grain. I'm not sure exactly why, but it just feels more satisfying to eat when it tears into long strands. But was there a big difference in taste? Well, whether I'm making pork or beef jerky, I use the exact same marinade, which is very heavily flavored, especially when I make it spicy. The resulting product has the savory flavor of meat, but you can't tell beef from pork honestly, and I would consider myself as someone who has a really sensitive palate. I will admit I don't particularly love the natural color of pork jerky, but that was easily fixed with the addition of dark soy sauce. And with regards to trimming the fat off or leaving it on, it is purely personal preference. I will say that if you enjoy fat on your steak, you'll definitely enjoy it on your jerky as well. All the fat has rendered down in the oven slowly, so it isn't that hard sticky fat. What's left is very soft and melts as soon as you touch it. If you do leave the fat on, I recommend storing your jerky in the freezer. In fact, I recommend storing your jerky in the freezer regardless. It stays fresher and it's very easy to defrost in a couple minutes. In conclusion, when comparing the final products, the only flavor that strongly comes through is the marinade. I truly don't think I would be able to confidently identify which is beef or pork if I was blindfolded. Both proteins can be turned into amazing jerky, which are equally satisfying to eat. The only real difference is the price. You can make nearly 3 times the amount of jerky from pork than beef for the same cost. For this $11 pork loin, I got 3 freezer bags of jerky that look something like this, which is kinda crazy since a regular size bag of beef jerky costs about $10 these days, and it's $10 for significantly worse flavor, quality, and quantity. And with the rate that this stuff disappears in my house, it's always better to have more, so pork jerky will definitely be my go-to from now on. Just like with the beef, this homemade pork jerky has a delicious and much more natural flavor profile compared to the mass-produced stuff that's full of chemicals and preservatives. Despite not being nearly as common as beef jerky, there really are no downsides to making pork jerky. I really hope you try making some for yourself. It's 100% worth it. I also hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe if you did. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you for the next recipe.